All right, so you want to be cool, you want to be quick, you want to play Thommy Turbo, or you at least want to know what this is. Yes, the thumbnail's accurate. This deck does run Thomas, it does run Galmon, and it says that there's extra security checks in there. Now, how exactly does that happen? Well, let me tell you. Sheer determination and willpower. So, yeah, basically, I went to locals with this deck, and it started off as a joke when I first started testing this deck out, because I wanted to run Thomas. I thought it'd be funny, and just Thommy Turbo just sounds so funny to me. And it originally started off with 4 Thomases in the deck, but then I dropped it down to 3 because 4 was honestly pretty excessive. Most people would say even 1 is excessive. But I went ahead and made this deck, and I got some cheeky wins out of it, and started tweaking it little by little, and it actually started to become something fun to play. Now, this deck, without a doubt, completely is just a tier 2 or tier 3 deck, honestly, if I'm going to be honest. The reason why I won these tournaments is because I think I had a surprise factor that people just didn't know how these cards would work together, or what these cards even did in some cases. People never see Thomas, never even consider it, nobody ever talks about it, so people just don't know what to do against it, or even see it as a threat for the most part. So yeah, it's a pretty funny deck, but I'll go ahead and get into it in just a minute. But if you like this kind of content, I like making creative decks, but I do play some meta decks occasionally. And you can check out other creative decks, like I did the red, green, blue Imperial deck for set 1.5. Not really important at this point anymore, but I mean, if you like seeing like weirder stuff, I'll make some decks based around that kind of things. So let's go ahead and get right into the video. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look into this deck. So I'm going to go through the deck first, and then we'll talk about the combo potential that this deck actually has, and what you can really do if you have the right setup. So to start off with the Digi-Eggs, first off, we have Upamon, right? We're running actually 2 of those, just for card draws. In case you don't have any jamming, then you're going to be able to get your card draws from Upamon. Then we're going to run 3 Demi-Devimon. This Demi-Devimon is the one that gives you a card draw if you have jamming, which you will be getting jamming in this deck, with a few different levels. So I do like having these jamming ones. They kind of guarantee, regardless if they die or not, or if there's anything, there's no other really requirement on there. Jamming comes up frequently enough that I'm going to be able to get them. So that's why I won't run those Digitama there. Then we're going to run Vmon. We're going to be running 4 of these Vmons, jamming as its natural ability. That's going to go well with the Demi Vmons. So you're going to get your card draws there. There's 4 of them, so you're likely to see them. Maybe not in the first hand, but you'll definitely see them throughout the game. And so your Demi Vmons are really going to get their value there. Then we have Galmon. We're running 3 Galmons. This is going to be helpful for Digibursting and the sauce, which comes later. Obviously, it's going to work with Thomas, that was mentioned before. We're running 2 Gabumon. This is the starter deck, or not starter deck, sorry, the booster set 1 or part of 1.0 Gabumon. This will give you a draw on play. You need that for your card draw. You really want to be able to find your cards as quickly as possible. We've got Strabimon here for trying to dig for our tamer cards, as well as other hybrids that we have. So it will hit Strabi, as well as the Lobomons that are in this deck, as well as the 5 tamers that are in this deck. So we're going to run 4 of those just to give us more targets, as well as a body on the board. Then we're running a 1 of the ET2 Vmon. This is just kind of a spice pick. You can really sub this out for whatever you want, but we're going to be restanding quite a bit in this deck. So this will give us a draw on restands. And I'll explain further once we get there. We got Lobomon. This is obviously an essential card if you want to be getting that last surprise swing for game, allowing you to Digivolve on top of a tamer. We're running 5 tamers in this deck, so you're going to be able to get Lobomon off pretty easily. Then we've got some blockers just to stall out the opponent just a little bit. We've got Grismons, or Grizzlymons. Blocker, -2 memory, 6k, 5 drops. So even if you brick, it's not as bad as probably dropping the, well, there is no 1-cost Evo for this set. So Those are pretty much the only options that you have. Then we have Galgamon here. Galgamons are really important for a couple of reasons. So we are going to be swinging with these Galgamons as well as the Galmons. This has Digiburst 2, draw a card. This is going to help us more with our card draws. You can Digivolve from Vmon onto Galgamon. After you swing, get your card draw from Demidevimon, then Digiburst the Demidevi and the Vmon and get another card draw. So that's really big there. Plus you get the card draw for evolution, so you're really starting to cycle once you do that. You don't always want to do that effect because you will occasionally want some other Digibursting happening, maybe with Mach Galgamon once we get there later. So it's always a question about whether or not you have the cards you need. Or, you know, if you have different options in hand, like XVmon here, you might want to just restand rather than do the Digiburst here. You're occasionally going to want these to say, you want to save them for later as well. It just really depends on what the board state is like. So then we have XVmon. We're running 2 of these. This is just to restand our Vmons. You can actually get some pretty nice stuff in the future. Well, not in the future, but we'll get to it in the future why you can... XVmon can be pretty big here. Honestly, you could even run 3, maybe swap something out, but XVmon's really good. I have a 1 of Spice Vidramon here. This has come in handy so many times. The extra swing, like I said, there are 5 tamers in this deck, so you're going to be able to get this ability to restand very easily. And I know what you're probably thinking is 6k, you're going to die on the first swing most likely. Yeah, that's true. It's very possible, but we have some way to get around that. So yeah, I like it a lot. It's come up a lot. With all the draw power that you have, you're going to be able to find him. Maybe not every game, but you'll most likely find him in whatever game you're playing unless it ends extremely quickly. So plus is inheritable of giving plus 1000 DP on both players' turns. Some people tend to forget that. Will allow your level 6s to be a little bit scarier, and people might not want to swing to actually kill your level 6 because they'll end up killing themselves with their 11k or 12k Digimon. But yeah, so it's pretty interesting there. So next we've got Aerovidramon. This is going to give us more restand potential. This is really great for being able to poke your opponent with some of the lower level Digimon. And yeah, so when Digivolving and you have a blue tamer on the board, which again, we have 5 of, then you can unsuspend one of your blue Digimon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this one. You can unsuspend a different Digimon, which is really great. The inheritable, we don't really care about. It's all about that main effect on Digivolving that we really care about. We're running 3 of these Aerovidramons. So then we're going to go to Mach Galgamon here. Mach Galgamon, Digiburst 2. Return 1 level 5 or lower Digimon to your opponent's hand. This is really great for board control, kind of stalling out your opponent a bit. This is going to work with Thomas as well, so very useful there. He is probably the one that you're least going to be using Thomas for, but he is an option if you survive a security check. Then, you know, you have him around to swing again. Or you could just stop and just Digivolve. His inheritable also comes in handy a lot, giving plus 2000 DP while you have a tamer in play. There's no color restriction, not that it matters since we have 5 blues in this deck. So you're going to give your level 6s to level, or not level, 14,000 DP or even 13,000 DP. It's pretty good. It's pretty safe swing. You only lose to pretty much level 7s and, you know, occasionally like an ancient or something like that, something with 13,000 DP. Next, we have Bastamon. This can be swapped out, honestly, for Beowulfmon. For the jamming, works well with the Demi-Vmon, but I personally like the Bastamon for the cheap Digivolution. 8,000 DP makes it a relatively safe swing. If something's suspended on the board, having 8k can usually take a lot of things out. So we're going to move into the level 6s now. Now we have Leopardmon. Now, first you say, all right, you're playing Thomas and Leopardmon? Like, what is this deck? How can this have possibly won a tournament? Well, it won 2 tournaments. Leopardmon is a very important part of this deck, like extremely important. I think we're actually running 2 here. So if you don't have 2 Leopardmons, I highly suggest you run at least 2 Leopardmons because you want to see this during your games. I think if you don't run 2 Leopardmons, you're really breaking this deck and it just kind of falls apart. So when Digivolving, you can play a level 1, or you can play 1 level 4 or lower Digimon from a Digivolution stack on a different or on any Digimon card. So it's not necessarily just the Leopardmon card. You can play a level 4 or lower from any stack, and during your turn, level 4 and lower Digimon get jamming. that is huge. That is really big. This is what we're really pushing for, is that level 4 or lower jamming. And it really helps with Gaomon and Galgamon. So once you start thinking about it a little bit, then like you start to see where the degeneracy can come from. So yeah, we run 2 of these Leopardmons. Then we have Zeed-Garurumon. This is just more board control to get rid of threats before they become even bigger threats, I guess. Level 5s, basically bouncing back a level 5 from your opponent can be a pretty big tempo stopper. So Digiburst 2, when Digivolving, you can return a level 5 or lower Digimon. Very big. We run 2 of those. We usually see that at least once in a game. Sometimes we see both, and that can be really big as well. Then we're running 1 Mirage Galgamon. This is just, again, for the Thomas support. Also 14,000 DP, restand, unblockable, and the memory reduction when Digivolving. If we get late enough in the game, he can become either free or very close to free, depending on the type of deck your opponent's running. All right, then we have Omnimon. Omnimon's just in here for more board control removal. Also works with Vmon. Surprisingly, the one of Vmon that when you restand, you draw a card. But yeah, you know, board control as well as 2 swings, very good. 15,000 DP also can be great for removing threats off the board when they attack security. Really, really big DP. Then we're running 3 Hammer Sparks. Everybody knows what Hammer Spark does. You gain a memory for a 0 cost in security. It gives you +2 memory. Very big, can end games for your end games for your opponent, basically making them lose, forcing them to pass over turn. But it can also give you a lot of big plays with your Tamers, as we do run Davis in this deck, so you're gonna have a minimum of 3. A Hammer Spark with a Davis can be very big, since we're running Zeed-Garurumon and Leopardmon, who are both 4 cost Digivolution. Mirage Galgamon is 4 cost, but he hardly ever costs 4 because his Digivolution cost gets reduced by 1 for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. It's very hard for them to go under that, to be honest. So yeah, these Hammer Sparks come in big with Zeed-Garurumon and Leopardmon. Then we have to stop fighting, also extremely big in this deck. This is very important. Great synergy with Vidramon, great synergy with a bunch of small Digimon like Vmon, or not Vmon, but level 3s like Vmon, I guess. But mostly like Strabi and Gaomon and things like that. Gaomon is really the biggest one. So yeah, we run 2 of those because we definitely want to see one of those in our hand at some point. The security effect also makes it go to your hand, so it's never a wasted card unless it gets trashed from security. But yeah, then we have Kakaitis Breath. We're running 1 of. This is just a removal card. It also puts cards in your opponent's hand, which is great. We need that to actually help with Thomas. If for some reason they give us a ton of memory, we can bounce something back, giving them, you know, an extra card in their hand, which again is synergy with Thomas. Aqua Viper. We run 1 of this. This is also a go to your hand security effect. Oh yeah, Kakaitis Breath is just play the effect for free from security. But yeah, Aqua Viper, this can be huge. So once your opponent realizes what this deck actually does, they're going to start playing around you, and this is the counter to them playing around you. You can run this at 2 or 1, but I've learned that if you run it at 2 and you're playing against Megazoo or red-yellow control, you're going to have a tough time because this is going to be a dead card in hand. So I really don't like having 2 of these because of that reason. All right, next we're going to have Davis. Davis is going to help us search for our blue Digimon, and then also give us 3 memory to start. Pretty self-explanatory when, you know, based off the effect on the card. He's a 4-drop, security effect, get to play it for free. And here is the last Tamers. We're running 3 Thomases. Like I said before, there used to be 4, but now we're down to 3. This is just... I just don't see the need for the 4th one. So let's look at the effect, because people really don't know what this does. I've run into this so many times where people just have to ask me what the effect does, and people usually ask too late. Because by the time they ask, they're kind of screwed. They've already started taking hits. So on play, you draw 1 card. You get that from security as well, so it's extra card drawing power. But the secondary effect, this is where the deck kind of shines a little bit. But again, you can play around this. So it's, if your locals has no idea what this is and how it works, and they've never seen this kind of deck go, then yeah, you're gonna have a field day until somebody starts spilling the beans and telling other people. But yeah, anyways, Thomas, if your opponent has 8 cards in hand, then you can suspend Thomas to restand a Digimon with Gao in its name. Now, we have quite a few Digimon with Gao in this deck. We've got Mirage Galgamon, which is a one of, so he's not really that important, but it's not the biggest deal in the world because he's already really big. He's just kind of a threat being there on the board itself. This is just kind of a bonus if you get it with Mirage Galgamon. You're hardly ever going to see him. The other megas are way more important for board control and also getting, you know, going wide with Leopardmon and giving jamming. But yeah, you can unsuspend one of your Galmons. And yeah, that's pretty much the deck. And let's go over some of the synergies. All right, so this is where the synergies kind of begin, right? So you have Thomas. Thomas is not really going to do anything in the beginning of the game. He's mostly a mid to late game card, but you do want to get him mid game or late game even. Getting him early, if your opponent knows what it does, then they're going to play around it. And if they don't play around it and you win, then they'll start playing around it because they'll see the threat that this causes. Now, if you guys haven't seen it yet, Leopardmon, you know, not only will you get to play an extra body onto the board, but your next turn, if you have a Galmon, you know, back in the raising area or something like that, right? Well, you know what? Let's get Demi-Vmon out because this is way more practical. So we have Galmon with Demi-Vmon in the back. We've got a stack with Leopardmon in it. Just pretend it's not there yet. But we have Galmon in the back. We just digivolved into Leopardmon. Maybe we choked at 1. Maybe they're at 3. Really depends on what the board state is. But generally, getting off these big guys off the board without them being suspended doesn't happen all too often. It's generally kind of safe. I don't want to say it's 100% safe because, yeah, someone can easily just play a Gaia Force and boom, it's gone. But if you look at your board state and like maybe if your opponent doesn't have any Digimon on board, you know, this is the time to do it because either they're going to give you a bunch of memory by removing it or, you know, they just have to build up and they're not going to be able to respond to it. So you pass turn going into Leopardmon, you bring out the Galmon, your opponent, if you're keeping track of your opponent's cards in hand, Galmon and Thomas now work. If you have multiple Thomases, which is generally what happens from all the card drawing that happens with this deck, say you have a second Thomas, right? Let's go and grab a second one on board. Wow. All of a sudden, we now have, what is this, 4 swings available to us? You can even do some cheekier stuff. Say you have Davis on board, because this has happened to me several times. Where is Davis? Should be over here. All right, we have Davis on board too. This is usually mid to late game, generally late game if you have all 3 of these cards on the board. You swing at security. You have jamming because of Leopardmon. You do not swing with Leopardmon first because if you lose him, you lose the synergy. You swing with jamming. You draw for Demi-V because Demi-V gives a Digimon with jamming a card draw once per turn. So you swing, it's a Digimon, you survive, or it's an option card that doesn't really affect your board state. Then you can suspend a Thomas to restand him. You can swing at security again, right? Jamming, you survive. All right, cool. Restand again with Thomas. If you happen, this has happened before and it's so funny. You can either do 2 things. So you can swing again, right? Just for, you know, like just getting jamming with Galmon. But if you want to save your last swing, you can do a couple things. So first off, if you're at 3 memory because of Davis, you digivolve into Vidramon, right? On your last swing. That way you don't lose a way to restand. You're already stood. Now Vidramon's effect takes into play. You have blue tamers on board. You can swing, you can restand, and then swing again. That is a lot of swings. That was what? 1 swing, 2 swings, 3 swings, and then you stand 4 swings, 5 swings, 6 swings. That's big. That is huge. You can literally 1-turn kill if you have this setup. Alternatively, if you don't have the 1 of Vidramon, because it is, again, a 1 of, you can do that last swing rather than Digivolve, and then go into XVmon, right? And then you can swing with XVmon. XVmon will still have jamming. That's really big. So you can do a lot of neat stuff with that. A lot of people, what I've also noticed is once you get to game 2 or game 3, they realize, okay, jamming Galmon is a problem. And it's not just Galmon, right? It's Galgamon. Galgamon's a level 4. You can restand with jamming several times with Galgamon as well. You have a few places to do it. and they see what you're doing. What I tend to see is that people get nervous about Galmon coming out once they've lost to this. And what they do in response is, let me see, they play a blocker, right? That's a problem for Galmon because Galmon cannot go past this blocker. Sorry for the camera, it's having trouble focusing. We have Galmon on board, we've got the blocker. Now, say they have, I don't know, 2 security left, right? We have a problem here. Jamming doesn't do anything here because if we swing with Galmon, they'll block, right? And then we're kind of screwed. We lose our Galmon, we lose the synergy with the Thomases. Leopardmon doesn't really matter here because we just can't swing over it. That is why we have to stop fighting. Yes, they can block it. We start our turn with 3 memory again, remember, because of the Davis. Or even if they give you 2 memory, or if you have 1 memory and you have Hammer Spark, right? You're still in the clear. There's so many ways to get like past this, I guess. You don't need the Davis. They could give you 2 memory, or you could have a Hammer Spark in hand if they choke you at 1. So now that you've played we have to stop fighting, they're gonna block us the first swing. It's like, okay, fine, like nobody dies here because we have to stop fighting makes it so that no Digimon can die by battle this turn. So we still have our Thomases, we restand, we can swing again, and then we can restand, we can swing again, that's 2 security, and then there's game. I have won games like that probably like 4 times because they think the blocker is the solution when it's really not. But there's not much else you can really do behind it. Sometimes hard removal, just getting rid of the Galmon is enough. But the problem with like playing a Gaia Force to kill a Galmon is like you're losing out so much by playing that Gaia Force. You're giving me 5 memory, or you're paying 8 memory for something that I Digivolved into, or that I just played from hand that was 3 cost, right? There's a lot of loss of value there. And I just have more Galmons in my deck anyways. I have Galgamons to be able to do that as well. It's not a good choice. All right, so I've set up another board state here. What your opponent might end up trying to do if they've lost to this in the set and they're trying to play around it, they've noticed it's like, okay, 8 cards is a dangerous place to be. If Leopardmon, it doesn't even matter if Leopardmon's on the board, right? Because you can win with we have to stop fighting as well. So what they tend to do is be like, how many cards can I have in hand without activating that Thomas in the back, right? They're like, oh, 7, right? So they just start playing cards onto the board, making sure their hand size doesn't ever get to 8. And generally like to stay around 7 because, you want to have the most cards as possible to have options and things like that. But the problem with that is if I have this board state, I was able to pull out this Vmon, say with this Leopardmon, and I have Galmon on the board, I'm ready to get my my Thomas going. So, but they only have 7 cards in hand. What do I do? Well, you play Aqua Viper. You bring back the Vmon to hand. Well, first you swing with the Vmon because he's got jamming. Then you play the Aqua Viper. You bring this back to hand. These 2 are now returned to your opponent's hand. And what was that they had? They had 7? Oh, wait, but now they have 9. Thomas is now active. I have Galmon with jamming. If I have 2 Thomases on board, hello multi-swings, right? So then I swing, restand, swing again, swing with Leopardmon. There's your combo. You want to keep that. Okay, so here's another scenario of some other combos that you can do in this deck. So you have Leopardmon, you have Vmon on the board, right? Double jamming doesn't really do anything. It's still jamming, not much of a difference. So what you end up doing is you swing with Vmon, right? You get jamming, you're fine. Then you Digivolve into X Vmon for 2, you're at 0. You can swing again, you have jamming, don't really care about Digimon and security. Option cards, yeah, it can screw you over, but they'll probably just end up killing the Leopardmon if it's something that, destroys like a Gaia Force or something like that. If it's DP reduction, they'll probably choose the XVmon because they probably won't be able to kill the Leopardmon. But anyways, we're going to go into XVmon, or we're going to swing with the XVmon jamming. Then we're going to Digivolve again into Aero Vidramon. So this is a pretty cool combo that actually happened quite a few times in a few games where you get 2 swings off and you get to still stay like unsuspended. This is pretty big because now you're threatening another level 6 onto the board, and if it's Zed Garurumon, that's removal. You're keeping your opponent down again. So yeah, definitely another cool combo that you can have here. Leopardmon is pretty big. I don't think Leopardmon's all that great besides this kind of deck. But again, I said this is like a tier 2, tier 3 deck. Yeah. Anyways, guys, that is this deck. The 2 tournaments that I played, I feel like the decks that I guess were the most significant that it won against was I did win against Yellow War Greymon. I also did win against 2 yellow-red control decks. Both of them with slight variances, but they're pretty much the standard run-of-the-mill yellow-red controls that you see going around in big tournaments. One of them was meant to handle more of the lower end, and the other one was meant to deal with more of the higher end of Digimon with the controlling option cards. And when I first went into that match, I really thought I was going to lose. I thought that matchup is guaranteed loss for me, but what ends up happening is because you have 3 Galmon, because you have a bunch of level 3s, and you can get Leopardmon with jamming, you can swing multiple times and you might lose one of your Digimon to security. But you're not going to lose all of them, and they all have jamming, and one of them is eventually going to hit, or even 2 of them might hit a Digimon, and then that's left on the board, and your opponent either has to respond to it with an option in hand, or they have to respond to it by, or they have to put a Digimon on board, because they can't just sit back and do nothing. My games were pretty close every time, because I have no recovery, they have recovery, so I have to go through like 7, maybe even 8 security. But because of the restanding from Thomas, there were times that I ran into 2, maybe 3 Digimon in security, and if I had 2 Galmons on board, they're not going to be able to take out both of them unless they're running Lightning Paw, which they don't anymore. So yeah, if I lost one, no big deal. I had another one that I could restand with the Thomas or the Galgamon, right? That was really the big thing, I think, is when it did hit a Digimon, I really got to take off a lot of security. But yeah, that's it. Anyways, guys, if you like this kind of video, please make sure to subscribe and check out some of the previous videos that I made. I know I did a Tampa video not too long ago. There was a little music video in there with a bunch of people from all over the country that we actually got to go and hang out and meet for the first time and played Digimon. So it was a lot of fun. Check that out. But yeah, I hope you guys liked this weird, janky deck that had won me 2 tournaments somehow that I just made kind of as a joke. But yeah, I like it a lot, and I hope we get more Thomas support. I don't think Thomas is a very good card. I 100% believe this is a lot of surprise factor. If your locals doesn't know what it is or what it does, then you're gonna turn some heads. I had people telling me Leopardmon was great, or is like amazing after this, but really Leopardmon I think is a trash card. Very little practical use for Leopardmon. But yeah, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.